A strange ritual unfolds in a cosmic void. We enter the kingdom of Pharaons, a land ruled by magicians. But this kingdom is torn apart by a succession war. The second prince orders the death of his rival, Prince Heinz. His loyal retainers eagerly await the command. They believe his path to the throne is now clear. The prince gives a ruthless order, leave no witnesses alive. But one of his knights seems to hesitate. A deep sense of unease fills the loyal guard. His premonition was right, a stranger stands over his body. The white-haired intruder reveals his glowing red eyes. The second prince is frozen in pure shock and terror. One of the prince's guards steps forward to intervene. He lunges at the intruder with blinding speed. But the intruder's red eyes catch his attention. He recognizes him as a Galda, a race without magic. The guard scoffs, confident his magic is superior. But the intruder stops his attack with one hand. He counters with a single, devastating strike. The guard is slammed to the ground, defeated by raw power. The prince can't believe his elite guard fell so easily. The intruder used a fatal strike, a precise non-magical technique. He explains that magic doesn't make you invincible. The prince finally understands the danger he is in. The intruder's gaze is cold and unwavering. But another of the prince's guards steps up. He begins to chant, summoning a powerful spell. Before he can finish, the intruder strikes. A brutal blow lands right on his jaw. The strike shatters his jaw, dislocating it. He tells the magician to give up, he can't chant now. But the magician refuses to be humiliated. He claims he doesn't even need to chant. The intruder braces for the incoming attack. A massive wave of magic erupts from the staff. But the intruder stands completely unharmed. The prince is stunned, his best guards are defeated. The intruder mocks his shock over non-magical victory. The prince accuses him of being Heinz's assassin. He confirms he's an assassin but for a friend. The prince is baffled by this revelation. He scoffs at the idea of royalty having friends. The prince's bigotry triggers a dark memory. The prince tries to bribe him, but it's too late. A single swift motion ends the conversation. The intruder declares his people are not livestock. Officially, the second prince died of an illness. And with that, the war for the throne is over. In a quiet room, a young royal reads a book. A familiar face appears in the window. He looks up, this is Prince Heinz. Heinz confirms he will be the next king. The assassin asks how it feels to achieve his dream. But Heinz says this is where our dream begins. He vows to end the persecution of the Galda people. The assassin smiles, believing in his friend's promise. They clasp hands, united under the moon. Heinz invites him to the coronation, but he refuses. The new king insists he won't be turned away. The assassin Van advises against causing trouble. He says he can wait for change to come. Heinz considers his friend's words. He suggests Van return home now that it's over. Van smiles, agreeing it's a good idea. Heinz tells him to finally see his family. Far from the castle lies a small, isolated shack. Inside, Van washes away the grime of his mission. His back reveals a lifetime of brutal scars. He picks up a lantern, his expression unreadable. He enters a room filled with books and equipment. Ancient texts on magic litter his desk. Wooden dummies stand ready for the next fight. Van reflects that the long battle is finally over. A memory surfaces of a woman by a lake. She once worried about the enemies he would face. He would be up against the kingdom's greatest magic users. Young Van declared he would simply learn magic too. But she reminded him he was born without it. He vowed to understand magic better than anyone else, and hone his body to overcome its power. That was his simple, unwavering answer. She smiled, accepting his stubborn resolve. Back in the present, Van closes an ancient tome. He looks over his research, a long fight indeed. He walks through a bright and bustling town. A vendor calls out, trying to sell his fruit. Van notices rare pineapples, a perfect souvenir. He remembers a young girl who loved them dearly. A soft smile crosses his face. He asks to buy one, but the vendor's tone changes. The man's eyes narrow, recognizing something. His friendly demeanor vanishes in an instant. He points to a sign, "No Galder allowed." Van's smile turns into a cold, hard line. He offers 2 silver coins instead of 1 copper. The assassin dangles the payment, a silent challenge. Van presses the vendor, his question a threat. Greed wins over prejudice. The vendor snatches the coins. He turns his back on the hateful stare, pineapples in hand. Whispers follow him through the crowded street. The crowd recoils, questioning his bold presence. They fear the curse, a lie that isolates his people. Van knows the truth, it's not a curse you can catch. The Galda are the only race born entirely without magic. Ancient kings decreed them livestock for the magical Alcasol. A system of exploitation was born from this decree, using the Galda for hard labor and as war fodder, crushing them under the weight of impossible taxes. Whenever the powerful grew restless, they massacred the weak. The Galda became a scapegoat for every disaster, a convenient target for the kingdom's hate. The injustice of it all makes him sick. He wonders if his people will ever find peace. Suddenly, a small girl's voice cuts through his thoughts. She runs too fast, tripping on the stone street. Tears well up in her eyes, a tooth missing from her smile. Van turns, his cold demeanor softening with concern. He kneels beside her, asking if she's all right. She takes his hand and points out his red eyes. He just smiles, a quiet confirmation. He vows to change this broken country himself. His journey home begins under a full moon. After 10 years, he hopes they'll be happy to see him. A memory surfaces of his humble home by the river. His mother once teased him about finding a wife. His little sister Lena had eagerly agreed. His mother told him to give his new life his all, but she made him a solemn promise. He could always come back if things got too hard. Lena promised his favorite soup would be waiting. They gave him a pendant to keep him safe. He clutches that same pendant now, smiling at the memory. But the ground ahead is glowing with embers. He crests the hill to see his village burning. The sight leaves him completely stunned. An inferno has consumed everything he knew. Panic grips him. Is his family safe? He screams their names, running into the blaze. He finds a body lying motionless in the grass. Rushing to help, he turns the person over. Their back is covered in blood. His eyes widen with pure terror. He looks up to see an unspeakable horror. His people have been hanged from the trees. The body in the grass is his sister, Lena. His mind screams, unable to process the horror. He frantically searches for his mother and sister. He runs into the inferno, praying they're safe. Everything he fought for was for his family. He wanted to build a world where they could smile. But that dream has turned into a nightmare. His eyes lock onto a familiar silhouette. Hanging from the tree is his mother. He stumbles forward, reaching for her. Her eyes are empty, her life gone. The world shatters into a million pieces. He collapses, refusing to believe it's real. Then a weak voice cuts through the haze. It's Lena, she's alive but barely. She collapses from her wounds. He scoops her up, begging for answers. She tells him to run, they're looking for him. This attack wasn't random, it was for him. He suspects remnants of a defeated faction. He holds her close, telling her to save her strength. He promises to get her to safety, but he sees the blood pooling beneath them. She's fading fast, her words choked with blood. She whispers she got good at cooking. She just wanted him to try her food. His eyes burn with an unspeakable rage. A single tear rolls down her cheek. Her hand reaches for his face one last time. She looks at him, her eyes fading. With her last breath, she tells him not to blame himself. Her hand falls, her strength finally gone. He holds her lifeless body, whispering her name. A memory flashes, his final battle. A royal guard sword pierces his back. The guards celebrate their victory. They've defeated Van, the rebel leader. The knight asks why he still stands. Van glares back, refusing to fall. The knight has one final question for him. He asks if Van took the blow on purpose. Van's eyes hold the devastating answer. He says there's nothing left to protect. He looks down at Lena's body in his arms. The knight offers a quick, merciful death. But Van has a question of his own. He demands to know who ordered the massacre. The knight smirks, refusing to answer. The knight reveals the sacred decision. Van screams, refusing to believe the lie. Suddenly, another figure approaches. A blonde woman greets Van by name. His eyes widen in complete disbelief. She stands over the fallen, tired of waiting. She mocks him for taking so long to return home. Van can only ask why she's here. She coldly blames him for everything. An assassin undetectable by magic is a threat. The race that created him is a threat. Both must be destroyed for the kingdom's peace. He finally understands her long deception. She will end discrimination by erasing his people. The knight swings his sword for the final blow, but Van catches the blade with his bare hand. The knight stares, shocked by his raw strength. Van promises to kill him, calling him Heinz. He hurls the knight backwards with a roar. The woman calls him a monster, gathering magic. The royal guards laugh at his defiance. They rush to protect their commander. But Van is already a blur of motion. He unleashes a secret Galda technique. He unleashes the forbidden, absolute blossom. But the woman prepares a counterattack. She fires her ultimate arrow of light. His crimson energy meets her holy magic. The resulting blast tears the land apart. In the aftermath, only bodies remain. Van stands alone, grievously wounded. The woman mocks his futile resistance. He's still trying to protect a corpse. She notes his refusal to ever kneel. She calls his unwavering pride foolish. With a final goodbye, she turns away. His strength was the reason he had to die. His body finally gives out and he collapses. As darkness takes him, a voice speaks. A crimson wolf appears over his body. It offers him a single chance to live. A chance for its own revenge. A dark power flows into Van's body. Suddenly, his consciousness returns. He wakes up completely disoriented. He looks at his hands, asking if he's alive. He doesn't recognize his surroundings, but something about this place feels familiar. A young girl's voice calls out to him. He sees Lena alive and well. She tells him their mom is preparing a feast. It's a celebration for his birthday. A woman confirms his name is Van, now 15. He sees his younger self in a reflection. This is his home 10 years in the past. The peaceful village of his childhood surrounds him. His family enjoys the beautiful day together. He wonders if the future was just a dream. He looks out at the home he once lost. A sudden gust of wind blows past Lena. It carries a flurry of white petals. Van stands still, feeling the air shift. He reaches out his hand instinctively. A single petal lands in his palm. He stares at it with a sense of wonder, but his expression darkens with a grim truth. The memories of his burning town are real. He remembers Lena's dying words. The pain of the fatal wound still lingers. Every moment of that future was reality. He clenches his hands, the truth setting in. Lena asks him if something is wrong. Van forces a smile, telling her it's nothing. His mother announces the birthday feast is ready. Lena wishes her big brother a happy birthday. Elsewhere, riders race through a dense forest. A woman with green eyes looks on, concerned. A knight reports they couldn't find any high-rank mages. She worries about harming civilians during their mission. Their destination is the Galda Autonomous District. Her expression is grim and determined. The knight coldly calls the villagers livestock. Her eyes widen in absolute horror. The riders are ordered to hurry onward. Back in the past, Van savors a nostalgic taste. His mother is confused by his reaction. Lena proudly admits she helped make the meal. He teases her and she playfully gets angry. A quiet, happy moment with his family. He questions if this is truly 10 years ago. Has he really been given a second chance? He doesn't know how to use this opportunity. His mother asks if he's still worried. Van looks up, completely lost. At 15, he had to choose his future path. His first option was menial labor in town, a life of hard labor under the whip. His other choice, become a mercenary. The Galda have no magic, only physical strength. Their immunity makes them perfect scouts. But in war, they are just expendable pawns, thrown onto the front lines to die. The reward for survival is great. He remembers his mother's past sorrow. His father's mercenary money fed them, but she fears for her only son. Despite the high death rate, it was a path to survival. In his past life, he defied his mother's wishes. And on the battlefield, he met a fateful figure, a memory that defined his entire life. A mysterious commander with piercing blue eyes. Suddenly, the peaceful day is shattered. An alarm bell rings out across the valley. Van looks toward the town, a horrible realization dawning. He remembers he forgot something terrible. He sprints away, screaming a warning to his family. They call after him, but he can't stop. Elsewhere, a fanatical cult preaches of sin. A zealot calls for a purge of impurity. Their kingdom has a problem, they claim. The detestable impurity known as the Galda. They preach that impurity is born from darkness. Van remembers their name, the Purification Sect, a fundamentalist cult from the kingdom's religion. Their radical ideology was branded as heretical. They believe the Galda are demons to be eradicated. He recalls the day it all happened. On his 15th birthday, the sect invaded their district. With no security, the town was easily conquered. In his past life, he could only hide with his family, a helpless child watching the slaughter. But this time, things will be different. He stalks his prey from the rooftops, and then he leaps into action, scaling the wall in a silent blur. Below, a zealot calls for the town's cleansing. He holds a torch to a terrified woman, but a shadow descends from above. Van knows the tactics for fighting magicians. Strike fast from outside their perception. Target the brain or spine to prevent spellcasting. He lands as the cultist's body hits the ground. The other fanatics turn in stunned silence. Our boy stands alone before them. A cultist ignites his blade, screaming in rage. Van deflects the flaming sword, plunging his dagger home. A magical defense should have stopped the blow, so Van will simply use their own magic. Another zealot unleashes an electric spell, but Van is already moving, a blur of motion. He slips past the lightning's crackle, his hand becoming a weapon aimed at the mage. The caster falls before he can react. 3 zealots remain, stunned by the speed, but a shout from a side alley stops him. Another cultist holds a woman hostage. He didn't account for more fanatics nearby. Van knows kneeling just means he dies too. He calls the bluff, telling the woman it's too bad. The zealot tells her to blame the boy. At the last second, Van yells out. He surrenders, dropping to his knees. The cultist sneers, believing he has control. He shouts to his comrades in the plaza. Then he throws the hostage at Van. The impact sends our boy to the ground. The remaining fanatics surround their prey. They kick him while he's down, screaming for revenge. They promise to make him suffer for their fallen comrades. One of the zealots feels a sudden dread. He sees a dark, demonic power within Van. He decides to end this now, blade ready. But a new voice unleashes an ice spell. Runic symbols of ice erupt from the ground. The fanatic is frozen solid in an instant. A woman warns him that any movement will shatter him. She declares the fight over, placing them under arrest. The zealot recognizes them, pursuers from the capital. Van is stunned, they've arrived far too early. The trapped zealot screams for his men to attack her, but his comrades are already encased in ice. The mage just stares him down, unimpressed. She orders her knights to disarm the frozen fanatics. The plaza is now a gallery of ice statues. Our boy can only watch, still on the ground. The woman notes he took down 3 mages alone. His eyes widen in surprise. Her gaze meets his. A small, knowing smile forms on her lips. She kneels before him, offering her thanks. The flame mage he killed was a major threat. Van remembers the overwhelming power he faced. She admits his surprise attack saved many lives. His victory forced the kingdom to act faster. Van understands the consequences of his fight. She offers him a reward for his help, but he simply offers his thanks. Intrigued by his potential, she asks his name. He introduces himself as Van. The mage reveals her name is Helene. Helene then makes a surprising offer. An invitation to the Magic Academy. Van is left speechless by the proposal. The name echoes in his mind. She describes a grand school for the gifted, a place where anyone can enroll by merit. Van remembers this place from his past life. It was the birthplace of legendary heroes and the most powerful mages in history. He has to ask why him. Her eyes hold a hidden answer. She suggests they speak somewhere more private. Without waiting, she grabs his hand. She pulls him along through the ruins. She playfully admits she doesn't know the way. Van can only follow, caught off guard. The two walk off into the forest alone. Helene finds them a secluded spot, a place where no one can overhear them. But her friendly demeanor suddenly vanishes. She unleashes a powerful magic spell. Van is completely taken by surprise. A massive ice arrow materializes before him, but in a flash he's behind her. She can't believe his speed. It wasn't magic, just pure technique. He effortlessly moved into her blind spot. He tells her to stop the charade. He knew she had no killing intent. She's impressed by his warrior's intuition. Van realizes it was all just a test. She admits she had to see for herself, to see if he could truly fight mages. Van remains unimpressed by her methods. She reveals her true reason for the test. He could be the one to change everything. If he comes to the academy, that is. A memory sparks in Van's mind, knighthood. Helene is surprised he knows the term. She confirms his abilities make him eligible, a system that rewards the academy's best. Knighthood grants the right to found a new noble house. The land granted is tied to the recipient's past. For him, that would mean his hometown, Galda. Van is stunned by the possibility. He admits the thought had crossed his mind, and he's still young enough to apply. A flicker of hope appears on his face, but he has 3 questions for her first. She smiles, ready to answer them all. He asks about the required noble recommendation. She happily confirms she'll handle that part. Van seems surprised by her easy solution. She eagerly awaits his next question. He wonders how a non-mage could earn knighthood. It's an unprecedented, almost absurd idea. She agrees that it sounds strange, but she reveals a common thread among past winners. They all discovered a new principle of magic, like developing new medicines or magic circles. But a principle isn't just about raw power. His anti-mage techniques could be their own principle. He just needs to prove his method's worth. So it's not impossible, just incredibly difficult. She cuts to the chase, asking his true goal. She questions his lack of trust. He demands to know what's in it for her. A slight smile plays on her lips. She admits she has a motive, but it's a secret. His red eyes burn with suspicion. A tense silence hangs between them. A memory flashes through his mind. His little sister runs to him, frantic. She heard rumors of his dangerous fight. He tries to brush it off, saying he's fine. But her tear-filled eyes say otherwise. She lunges forward, hugging him tight. He's always reckless, always saying he's fine. She tells him how worried their mother was. A quiet moment between brother and sister. The memory fades, her gaze still on him. She tells him her motives don't matter. Knighthood gives him the legal right to protect them. She swears it on her name, Helene Steinartz. With her promise made, she departs. Van is left alone with the weight of his choice. He remembers the reason he fights. He recalls his mother's pained expression. But then he recalls a different memory. He remembers his mother's gentle praise. She smiled, proud of her son. Van tells his family about the academy. He explains the knighthood recommendation. His family worries about the magic users, but that's exactly why he must go. His sister looks on, still concerned. He'll prove the Galda are second to none. This was the only path he could find. In this life, he won't be an assassin. Helene's offer is a new, unknown path. Having died once, he'll risk anything. He declares his goal, to end the discrimination. His mother and sister are stunned. His mother's eyes widen in shock. Van's resolve is unshakable. She realizes she cannot stop him. He asks for her forgiveness. She knows he's too determined to listen. Stubbornness, she says, runs in the family. He smiles, grateful for her blessing. But she brings up a practical problem: money. She reminds him the school isn't free. Van freezes, realizing his fatal oversight. His mother sighs, vowing to find the money. His sister jumps in, offering to work, but Van refuses. He panics, knowing no jobs pay that well here. But the money problem is solved instantly. Helene appears holding a bag of golds. It's his reward for defeating the purification sect. With his future secured, it's time to leave. His mother warns him of the prejudice he'll face. She tells him to live with dignity, her pride and joy. He promises her he'll do his best. His sister promises his favorite soup upon his return. He smiles, ruffling her hair gently. With a final farewell, he turns to leave. His mother and sister wave him off. He waves back, vowing to keep his promise this time. His journey toward a new life begins. He arrives at the breathtaking Academy City. Van stares in awe at the massive structure. Inside, other prospective students are registering. A noble son presents his father's recommendation. The guard bows and lets him pass. A noblewoman follows, also with a recommendation. Van steps forward, ready for his turn. But a voice suddenly shouts at him. The guard blocks his path, prejudice already starting. Van tries to stay calm, stating he's an exam candidate. The guard scoffs, questioning his right to be here. Van recalls the rule: anyone can take the exam. The guard explodes, calling him a low-status Galda. A blade is pressed right to his neck. He knows fighting back means instant disqualification. Suddenly, 2 more guards arrive to intervene. Van hopes for a moment of reason, but the senior guard just calls him deluded. His hope immediately dies. The guard begins to lecture him about the rules. He explains the catch: a noble's recommendation is required. The guard freezes, completely stunned. Van presents a scroll, complete with a noble's seal. The seal is authentic, leaving the guard speechless. The guard's shock turns to pure rage. He lunges for the scroll, accusing Van of forgery. Van's patience finally runs out. In a flash, he strikes the guard down. The armored man is thrown to the ground. The senior guard stares in utter disbelief. The crowd of candidates watches in shock. The fallen guard insists the kid did something strange. A new voice cuts through the tension. The senior guard recognizes him instantly: an examiner. He tries to cover, blaming everything on Van. But the examiner's gaze is fixed on our boy. Van states his name and his noble recommendation. The name Steinart's hangs heavy in the air. A wave of shock ripples through the crowd. The examiner takes the scroll for inspection. He confirms the seal is authentic. With a formal apology, he grants Van entry. The other candidates can't believe it. Even the guards are left wondering who he is. Van feels every eye locked onto him now. He realizes the power Helene's name truly holds. He finally steps into the academy grounds. He's surrounded by the best of the best. But his focus is absolute. He spots his first major rival, Dietrich, a master swordsman even at this age. Then another, the Grand Magician of Flames. His power is already legendary. And finally, the Holy Maiden Lunaris. He realizes they're all academy graduates. But he's carved his own path through blood. They were heroes forged on the battlefield, but they became lackeys in a war for the throne. In his past life, Van stood over their bodies. He remembers the blood on his hands. He killed them all. This time, he will compete in the spotlight. He knows the path ahead is difficult, but success could mean changing the entire kingdom. A sharp voice suddenly cuts through his thoughts. An arrogant student points right at him. Van turns, questioning if he's being called out. The student demands to know why he's so calm. Van coolly replies that it's his right. The student seethes at his insolent tone. He puffs his chest, a familiar power play. Van considers just bowing his head to avoid a scene. But he remembers a woman's words: live with dignity. Someone told him the same thing in his past. It was Helene telling him never to surrender his pride. Act with dignity, Van, you are mine. The student's shouting breaks his concentration. He grabs Van's collar, demanding an answer. Van's eyes harden. You struck first. The bully is stunned into silence. A dangerous smile spreads across Van's face. The bully is suddenly on his knees. Van offers a hand with a condescending smile. The student slaps his hand away in fury. but a powerful voice commands them to stop. The crowd turns, stunned by the interruption. Van's eyes widen at the newcomer. A blond man calls for unity in the kingdom. The bully bows low, recognizing Prince Hines. The prince asks to be treated as an equal. He addresses both Van and his attacker. Van realizes a royal is taking the exam. It's the ninth prince standing among them. The other students praise his fairness. They admire his tolerance for the Galda. Van stands in the crowd, a memory stirring. He recalls Helene mentioning his academy days. The pieces of his past click into place. The prince approaches, noting Van's nerves. He admits to feeling the same pressure. He offers a hand, a gesture of solidarity. Van stares at the prince's disarming smile, a smile that could win anyone's trust. But Van knows the truth behind it. He sees the prince's true, dangerous nature. He realizes he could kill the prince right now, but he pulls back, weighing the consequences. He clenches his fist, remembering his mission. Prince Hines senses something is off, but Van coldly rejects his concern. He turns his back on the royal. Prince Hines watches him go, hand still offered. His hand falls, the offer rescinded. The crowd mutters about his disrespect. They call him a beast for his rudeness. An official announces registration is over. He leads them to the exam site, the shadowed forest. The name alone puts the candidates on edge. Van listens, his focus absolute. The candidates arrive at the ominous forest. A large proctor welcomes them to the exam. This dangerous place will be their testing ground. The academy only trains the kingdom's elite. Candidates must prove they have basic power. Our boy listens, ready for anything. Their task is to find a magic flower while avoiding magical beasts. He didn't expect a combat test so early. Sabotage is forbidden, but cooperation is allowed. However, groups need one flower per person to pass. The proctor warns that large groups are a bad idea. They have until sunset to find their flower. Each candidate receives a guardian badge. Crushing it summons an examiner for rescue, but calling for help means instant disqualification. With the rules set, the exam officially begins. Candidates immediately start forming alliances. Others quickly partner up for safety. But Van is left completely alone. He doesn't mind, preferring to work solo. Van approaches the proctor to get his badge. He holds out his hand for the safety token. The proctor gives him a hard look. He hands over the badge without a word. Badge in hand, he steps into the forest. The proctor watches him enter, a smirk on his face. A magical beast immediately blocks his path. Van calmly sizes up the beast demon. These creatures are animals infused with magic. Their magic-enhanced bodies are a huge threat. The beast lunges with incredible speed. He notes this is his first non-human fight. He plants his feet, ready to counter. He unleashes the crushing strike technique. Its force waves bypass defenses to strike internally. A difficult move to land on an alert opponent, but it's the perfect counter for a mindless beast. The beast is sent flying, defeated instantly. He's fought beasts like this before as a mercenary. He knows exactly how to defeat this kind of demon. He glances back, a final word for the creature. Suddenly, he senses eyes watching from the forest. He's left scratching his head in confusion. Two other candidates are stunned by what they saw. One candidate assumes he used a dirty trick like poison. His partner warns him against interfering in the exam. But the rules are just for show, a man sneers. Especially not one who was rude to his highness. He realizes they can kill Van and face no blame. Elsewhere, a robed man is led down a dark corridor. The guard nervously leads the way forward. They arrive at a massive door sealed with magic. The guard is afraid, but the creature is under control. The beast is programmed to target only one person. Their target is the Galda boy, Van. They couldn't reject his application, but he cannot pass. Such candidates are destined for unfortunate accidents. Luckily for them, their target is completely alone. The bullies are certain no one would dare approach him. Back in the dungeon, the robed man turns the key. He unleashes the beast, ordering it to kill Van. Its glowing eyes fix on its one and only mission. Elsewhere, a purple-haired man senses a dark presence. A bad feeling about this exam washes over him. He's met by the man who unleashed the beast. The man gives a vague, unsettling answer. A sinister smile hints at his true intentions. His partner's suspicion grows instantly. Van moves deeper into the glowing forest. He follows a trail of glowing particles. Suddenly, he stops, stunned by what he finds. He's found it, the objective of the exam. The tears of heaven flower, glowing brightly. Picking this flower means he passes the test. But before that, he calls out his followers. The bully smirks, mocking his dog-like senses. Van smiles, saying cowards always attack from behind. He knows because he used to be an assassin himself. They declare he's unfit and they'll prove it. Van cuts them off, calling out their real motive, revenge. He cracks his knuckles, ready to crush their pride. The bully is stunned into a furious silence. The bullies power up, shocked by his confidence. Van sizes them up, a swordsman and a mage. A quick lesson on magic combat styles begins. There are swordsmen who channel magic into blades, and martial artists who enhance their bodies. Their team composition is a classic balanced strategy. The bully scoffs, seeing no killer instinct in Van. But Van knows he can't kill these two. His death would be an accident in the exam. But killing a noble means their family seeks revenge. He's chosen a new life, walking in the light. His goal isn't to kill, but to break their spirit. The bully hates the confidence in Van's eyes. He unleashes his family's signature wind magic. A storm of invisible blades rushes toward Van, but our boy dodges the attack with ease. The bully smirks, impressed he avoided a fatal blow. He boasts his magic is an invisible blade. He offers a chance to kneel and beg for mercy. Van mocks his deadly magic as a gentle breeze. The insult sends the bully into a blind rage. He unleashes a far more powerful windstorm. Van weaves through the barrage of invisible attacks. The bully is stunned. Van can see his magic. Van's eyes glow as he reveals the truth. The swordsman attacks, but Van is already moving. The wind mage can only stare in shock. Enraged, the swordsman powers up his blade. He leaps through the air for a final strike. His sword is a simple enchantment type. Van knows its weakness, avoid the blade. But a sword is 2 to 3 times faster than a punch. Van's lightning-fast footwork closes the gap instantly. He grabs the wrist, not the weapon. He effortlessly redirects the swordsman's momentum. His eyes burn with a cold, focused intensity. One swift motion sends the bully flying. The swordsman crashes to the ground, defeated. Van turns to the last one standing. He warns him that he can't hold back anymore. The bully's confidence shatters into pure terror. He immediately starts begging for his life. Van pauses, thrown by the sudden surrender. But a strange feeling puts him on edge. He screams at them to get away now. A massive fiery boar emerges from the forest. The 3 students stare in absolute horror. The beast charges, sending them all flying. The bullies are sent sprawling, crying out in pain. Van stares, completely stunned by the sudden ambush. His mind races to understand what just happened. A Hellboar demon fang beast stands before them. The students recognize the high-rank magical beast. Its eyes glow with pure destructive intent. He knows another charge is coming any second. This beast charge is as strong as siege magic. Van grits his teeth, assessing the impossible situation. He yells at the other 2 to run if they can. The bully looks back, confused by the command. But Van grits his teeth in pain. He's injured too. The boar's first charge left him wounded. The swordsman's leg is likely fractured. His friend can barely even manage to stand. Van wonders what he can possibly do now. Carrying them is too slow. The beast relentlessly pursues its prey. They could break the badge, but how long until help arrives? The swordsman tells his friend to run without him. He puts on a brave face, citing the honor of his house. The wind mage just stares, seeing the lot. He refuses to abandon a comrade, citing his own family's honor. Van watches this unexpected display of loyalty. Van tells them to break the badge for help. The wind mage refuses, citing his family's honor. He helps his injured comrade to his feet. They'll fight and die before accepting failure. Van clutches his head in frustration. He dismisses their resolve as cheap pride. He yells that they should fight to win. That, he declares, is the true pride of nobles. The bully scoffs at the cocky Galda. The Hellboar unleashes a furious roar. Elsewhere, an instructor looks up, smiling. His colleague asks what he's waiting for. The instructor asks if any students have called for help. The report comes back, all is quiet. He smirks, pleased with the news. A flashback reveals his sinister plot. He used Van's bag to set the beast on his trail. The assassination should already be complete. He laughs, waiting for confirmation. Back in the forest, the beast charges again. It tears through the woods toward them. Van shouts a plan, he'll create an opening. The bully still questions his authority. The Hellboar closes in for the kill. With no warning, Van charges the beast alone. Dark energy gathers in his outstretched hand. He slams a crushing blow into its skull. The impact connects with brutal force. His classmates can't believe what they see. The strike technique intercepts an enemy's attack. He targeted the head, the beast's point of motion. But there's a critical problem. His attack isn't penetrating its tough hide. His regressed body simply lacks the power. But this was the opening he promised. The wind mage unleashes his rending sky spell. A magic circle erupts, binding the Hellboar. The bully follows up with a lightning-charged slash. He brings his blade down on the beast's back. But the monster's hide is impossibly tough. The beast glares back, enraged and unharmed. Van sees the danger and screams a warning. The Hellboar breaks free with a furious roar. It smashes the ground in a violent shockwave. The blast sends the students flying backward. Van scrambles to his feet, checking on the others. His two classmates are injured on the ground. He's just relieved that they're still alive. The Wind Mage knows he barely survived that hit. His classmate despairs his sword was useless. But Van stands before them, ready for round 2. The others look at him in disbelief. Van's eyes burn with cold resolve. He declares that this time they'll finish it. The Wind Mage shouts that it's impossible. Van gives him a new strategy: add rocks to the wind. He tells the swordsman to thrust, not slash. The bully questions Van's sudden leadership, but Van's gaze is completely unwavering. He offers himself up as the perfect bait. He reminds the bully of his past betrayal. But our boy isn't interested in petty revenge. His true goal is to bring honor to his family. He won't abandon his countrymen, even his enemies. The bully is left completely speechless. He remembers his own cowardly actions. A flicker of shame crosses his face. The hellboar lets out a furious roar. Van gives the signal to attack. The bully unleashes his blade dance. The Wind Mage casts his upgraded spell. A storm of sand and gravel shreds the beast. The hellboar's eye burns with pure fury. Van grins. The sandstorm has blinded the beast. Its thrashing sends the students flying. Now it's Van's turn to move in. He slams his hands onto the beast's shoulder. He knows its anatomy has a weakness. The forelegs are flexible but unstable. He unleashes his rotation technique. The massive beast is thrown off balance. He shouts the command to the swordsman. The heart is right at the leg's base. The swordsman raises his glowing blade. The beast sees its impending doom. He prepares for the final, killing thrust. But his sword won't move an inch. He pushes with all his might, but it's stuck. The beast's hide is just too tough. He screams in triumph, thinking it's over. But Van knows the fight isn't done. The blade only grazed the monster's heart. It wasn't a fatal blow at all. The hellboar unleashes a furious counterattack. It's a special ability, Destructive Roar. A magic-infused shockwave blasts everything away. The shockwave flattens the entire forest. Students are thrown, coughing up blood. One is paralyzed, his organs surely damaged. The enraged beast charges the helpless boy. He can only watch as death rushes toward him. But Van intercepts the attack at the last second. He unleashes his harmony technique, Spiral. He redirects the monster's force into the ground. The hellboar just pushes harder, its eyes burning. But the monster's power is too overwhelming. Van considers using his hidden trump card. He knows it's risky, but it's his only choice. The student he saved watches in disbelief. Van screams for him to run for his life. The student scrambles back to safety. The redirection fails, Van is sent flying. He grits his teeth, bracing for the impact. The beast's tusk is inches from his face. He's slammed through the trees and into the ground. He lies battered, unable to get up. The other student cries out his name, but Van warns him to stay back. The hellboar isn't finished with them yet. It drives its massive tusks into the earth to crush them. Van makes a grim, final decision. He prepares to unleash his hidden power. A dark energy surges from within him. The hellboar senses a sudden, dangerous shift, but a blast of light intercepts the beast's tusk. The monster is stopped dead in its tracks. The hellboar is thrown back by the impact. Van looks up, stunned by the intervention. A blonde-haired figure appears from the trees. The students recognize him as Prince Heinz. They warn him to get back, but Van glares. The prince declares it's his duty to protect them. His followers are moved by his noble words. But Van remembers this kind of speech. He knows the prince's words laid to death. Heinz calls for everyone to fight together. Van looks up with a defiant smirk. I refuse. The prince and his companions are stunned. Heinz can't believe what he just heard. Van gets to his feet, repeating his refusal. He tells the prince his help isn't needed. The prince's eyes widen in disbelief. The other students demand he show respect. Van claims they would have won without his help. The other students are furious at his disrespect. The prince calmly asks if he's truly sure. Van confirms it, facing the recovering beast. He tells the royal to just stand and watch. The hellboar smashes the ground, enraged. Van shouts a warning as it prepares to charge. The monster thunders towards them once more. His friends look on, terrified and unsure. One resolves to land a single hit this time, but Van tells him to hold back or die. He claims he only needs one more shot. He orders them to wait for his signal. The two students agree to follow his lead. Prince Heinz watches the scene unfold silently. Van roars, ready to end this fight now. His friends rally behind him, their fear gone. He sprints head-on towards the charging monster. He vows to win without using his dark power. His eyes glow, activating a new skill. He vaults over the beast's head. The boar switches tactics, using a hook thrust. Van dodges the attack perfectly in midair. The opening is small, but it's all he needs. He brings his blade down for the strike. He slams his foot into the beast's face. The impact cracks against its thick skull. A direct, bone-shattering kick lands true. His friends are stunned by his raw speed, but the blonde student sees something more. The boar feels the blow, its eyes burning. She realizes he's manipulating his gravity, a technique only high-ranking masters use. Van rebounds off the monster's head, twisting in the air for another strike, unleashing a relentless flurry of attacks. The students watch, amazed by the assault, but the blonde girl knows it's not enough. Without magic, his strikes are just annoyances. The enraged beast proves her right. She grimaces, thinking his plan has failed, but Van just grins, everything going perfectly. His only goal was to make it angry. His eyes lock onto the perfect opening. He lands and finally gives the signal. The wind user unleashes his spell. A blade of sand-infused wind is unleashed. It tears directly into the monster's throat. Van stands victorious on the fallen beast. But the fight isn't over, another beast charges. Van unleashes a new skill, Crushing Blow Twin. He slams his fists directly into the monster. The technique merges two strikes into one massive wave. The impact shatters the beast's defenses. It collapses to the ground, defeated. Van grins, knowing it's the last one. The wind user gathers his remaining magic. He unleashes one final, desperate slash. The attack carves through the second beast. The students can't believe they actually won. Van walks calmly through the aftermath. His teammate asks what he's doing now. The blonde girl watches him with suspicion. Van glances back, his expression unreadable. He offers a hand to his fallen comrade. The wind user accepts, admitting his injuries. Van explains the beast's sonic attack is easily blocked. His friend is grateful for the lesson. With the battle over, Van turns his attention. His eyes lock onto their true prize, a patch of rare glowing flowers. The blonde girl notes only 2 flowers remain, but a new voice warns them about large groups. Van understands the warning, time is running out. His new timemates are just as worried. They've secured the 2 remaining flowers. One is immediately offered to their royal leader. The wind user scoffs at the blatant favoritism, but the second flower is offered to Van. The student claims it's just to settle a debt. The wind user finally gives his name, Falk. The other introduces himself as Ralph. Van takes in his new, reluctant allies. He introduces himself, offering a handshake. Van's grim humor doesn't land well. Meanwhile, the royal examines her prize. The flower glows with a strange energy. Falk and Ralph stare in disbelief. Van realizes it's reacting to light magic. She offers the now blooming flowers back to them. Van watches the trio from the shadows. The royal glances back in his direction. Their eyes meet across the clearing. He looks up, the sun is setting fast. Van takes the lead, ignoring their hierarchy. But the royal has one more thing to say. She asks Van if he's a commoner. Van turns, caught by her sharp observation. She points out he was covering his tracks. He feigns ignorance, asking what about it. She calls it assassin's etiquette, a specific technique. Falk and Ralph are stunned by the accusation. She connects his fighting style with his habits. Then she asks him directly, "Are you an assassin?" Van's face remains a perfect, unreadable mask. The question hangs heavy in the tense air. He looks up, considering his next move carefully. The royal explains her dangerous political position. Her father, the king, secured his rule through marriage, but her mother was a noble from their own kingdom. The other queens fear she will be named heir. She's a constant target for assassination attempts. If Van is an agent sent by her enemies, she must eliminate the threat immediately. Van realizes he's in a very tight spot. He curses himself for letting his old habits slip. He can't tell the truth, so he decides to play dumb. He puts on a goofy act, feigning total ignorance. But she sees right through his deception. Van grits his teeth, his plan falling apart. He drops the act, ready for a confrontation. Falk and Ralph watch, frozen with fear. Suddenly, Van lunges forward. Ralph screams his name, expecting a fight. The royal's eyes narrow, ready to counter. But he just pats her on the shoulder. He laughs it off, saying he was kidding. His friends are completely bewildered. Van apologizes, blaming his countryside manners. He tries to charm his way out of the accusation. She sees he's not taking the bait she offered. Van forces himself to remain calm. He knows this is a test for knighthood. She ignores his act, demanding an answer. She asks again about his assassin techniques. He names his sponsor, Helene Steinart's. Internally, he apologizes for using her name. The royal is stunned by the Steinart's name. Ralph explains they are a powerful ducal house. Van plays dumb about their high status. The royal considers this new information. She knows Helene as the Ice Flower Lady. House Steinart's would never betray the kingdom. His friends wonder about the recommendation. She concludes they're scouting his talent. She admits she would have scouted him too. Van is caught off guard by the praise. But she's not finished with her thoughts. She clarifies the real threat was the beast. She bows, offering her heartfelt thanks. His friends are flustered by her gratitude, but Van bluntly says he didn't do it for her. He points to his friends, his only reason. She's intrigued by his defiant attitude. This mysterious man is a complete enigma. Back at the entrance, the exam concludes. Some candidates celebrate their success, while others lament their crushing failure. An official asks for a final head count. The numbers don't add up, something is wrong. The test was designed for the prince to pass, but now even the special beast is missing. Suddenly, a shout goes up from the crowd. The examiner expects to see His Royal Highness. Instead, it's Van strolling out casually. The official's face contorts in pure shock. Van looks around, completely unfazed. He emerges from the glowing forest archway, walking with the confidence of a victor. The official's face is a mask of pure horror. He accidentally screams, "Why are you still alive?" Van smirks, turning back to the professor. The man quickly covers, feigning impressment. But Van says he wasn't alone at all. His friends emerge, dragging a colossal beast head. The professor's jaw drops in utter disbelief. They present the head of the demon fang beast. The professor can't believe his plan failed. He mutters his disbelief under his breath. Caught, he quickly pivots to praising their victory. Suddenly, the prince appears, applauding them. The professor freezes, seeing His Royal Highness. The prince claims he was merely a spectator. For the professor, the situation is catastrophic. He realizes he sent a monster after royalty. The prince notices the professor's terrified face. He forces a smile, giving the prince all the credit. Van watches the man's suspicious, loud praise, but the prince denies it, giving credit to the trio. He points directly at Van, their true savior. The professor and the scout are stunned silent. The crowd murmurs, identifying Van as a Galda who somehow knows advanced magic. Falk confirms it, they fought under Van's command. The professor refuses to believe a Galda could lead, but the prince explains Van has powerful patronage. Van plays along, though Helene taught him nothing. The crowd's opinion shifts, impressed by his backers. A purple-haired man approaches, bowing deeply to Van. He thanks our boy for protecting the prince. Van awkwardly denies it, saying they just fought back. He then offers a glowing blue flower. He gives one to each of his teammates. The prince asks the professor to accept the results. The professor grits his teeth, completely cornered. The prince begins the official roll call of passers. He calls out Falk Waltraich, who answers. Next is Ralph Eisenbach, present and accounted for. The professor's face contorts with silent rage. His hateful gaze lands on the final candidate. The prince calls the last name, Van Kruger. With that, he declares all four have passed. His friends celebrate their hard-earned victory. And so, Van officially becomes an academy student. The prince orders a full investigation into the beast. Later, the new students gather in a grand hall. The headmaster begins his speech to the assembly. He speaks of their duty as true nobility. They are to be the kingdom's sword and shield. Van never imagined standing among nobles, but it's a step towards a new world. From above, someone watches the ceremony. It is Helene, his powerful sponsor. Her observation complete, she departs. She pushes open a grand, ornate door. Inside, an elite group is waiting for her. The academy's most powerful students are gathered. Helene acknowledges the assembled council. Karina Ludier, the sword princess, complains. Silver strategist, Amelia Rodenwald, asks their purpose. Arnulf Clovius states their singular topic. The eighth prince reveals the agenda, a foreign substance. Helene immediately understands his meaning. They discuss the recent, unusual event. For the first time, a Galda has been admitted. Karina scoffs at a non-magic user's acceptance. The prince's gaze hardens with intent. He reveals the sponsor is one of their own. He demands an explanation for this breach. All eyes turn to Helene Steinartz. In this academy, pride often leads to duels. To maintain order in the academy, a group of elite students took control. They are the 5 brilliant crowns. The prince demands Helene explain herself. Why would she sponsor a Galda? Helene states she recognized his strength. Karina laughs at the very idea. The Galda are accursed, powerless people. The silver strategist agrees with her. How can someone without magic protect anyone? The prince declares it's common sense. Helene scoffs at their common sense. It's an excuse to justify prejudice. She stares down the prince himself. Arnulf proposes a simple solution, a test. They will test Van Kruger's true worth. The prince eagerly agrees to the plan. If the boy fails, her judgment is forfeit. Helene accepts the challenge without fear. She warns them not to underestimate him. Her confidence only piques his interest. Karina volunteers to be the one to test him. The prince gives her his full blessing. Amelia asks if she's truly interested. Amelia watches, her expression unreadable. The days pass at the Grand Academy. Students murmur about classes and rankings. The daily routine of academy life continues. Van reflects on his first week here. He's had a few hostile greetings, but in class he's put on the spot. The professor singles out the Galda. He asks Van to explain a complex magic theory, a clear attempt to humiliate him. The other students don't even know the topic. The professor mocks him, assuming he's illiterate. But Van stands and begins his explanation. He defines the four-element theory perfectly. He even details its modern applications. He smiles, asking if he should elaborate. The stunned professor quickly ends the lesson. Since that day, the open harassment has stopped. A friendly student named Ralph calls out to him. He asks why Van looks so serious. Van credits his new friends for the piece. Ralph seems confused by the compliment. Van just smiles and suggests they get food. But a purple-haired girl with a sword blocks their path. Van calmly asks what she wants. She accuses him of walking right past her. He apologizes, saying he didn't notice. A sword suddenly flashes before his eyes. The girl holds the blade to his throat. She demands a Galda grovel before a noble. Van refuses, saying they're all students here. Her eyes narrow, questioning his nerve. The sharp point presses against his neck. Ralph yells that she's taking this too far. She offers a simple choice, obedience or pain. Ralph watches his friend, terrified. But a dark, defiant smile crosses Van's face. He says being forced makes him want to resist. He catches the blade with his bare fingers. She tries to yank it back, suddenly cautious. But Van twists the blade back toward her. Her stance breaks as she struggles to hold on. Her weight comes down on the thin metal. And with a flick, Van shatters the steel. The sword explodes into fragments. He calls the move blade break. He mocks the fragile sword's cheap quality. A text box explains it's a weak training blade. The girl backs down, saying her part is done. But a new challenger, one of the 5 brilliant crowns, steps in. The students recognize the legendary sword princess, Karina. Van recalls her infamous title, Blood-Edge Karina, a veteran killer from the battlefield. He's frozen, wondering what she's doing at the academy.